Netflix just released an internal AI tool called Void, and while it might not have made front-page headlines, it represents one of the most technically meaningful advances in video editing we've seen this year. Most AI video tools chase flashy generation features. Void is solving a problem that has quietly consumed thousands of hours of professional post-production work for decades. The core feature of Void is object removal from video footage. You select an object and the system removes it. On the surface, that sounds familiar. In-painting tools have existed for a while, but framing Void purely as a removal tool is like describing a surgeon as someone who uses a knife. The removal is just the entry point. What happens in the next step is where Void becomes genuinely different from anything else available. When Void removes an object or person, the scene doesn't just get patched with a texture fill. The system recalculates what the scene should physically look like without that element. Shadows shift to match the corrected light source. Motion blur in surrounding areas updates. Lighting gradients across the frame are recomputed. This is the difference between covering a wound and actually healing it. And it's the step where every other tool on the market currently falls apart. Anyone who has worked in professional video post-production understands what Void is actually solving. Rotoscoping a person out of a shot, carefully masking frame by frame, might take a skilled artist an afternoon, but making the scene look like that person was never there? That's another several days of work involving manual light painting, shadow recreation, and motion correction. Void is compressing what has historically been a multi-day expert workflow into a tool interaction that takes minutes. The strategic signal here is just as important as the technology itself. Netflix is building internal AI tools at a pace and scale that the traditional software pipeline simply cannot match. They produce hundreds of titles annually across dozens of languages and markets. When you operate at that volume, even a 10% reduction in post-production hours represents enormous savings. By building Void internally, Netflix is telling the broader industry that they will not be bottlenecked by the standard tool chain, and the capability they build eventually flows outward to everyone else. The more important long-term implication of tools like Void is not about job displacement, that framing consistently misses the point. The real shift is that the minimum cost required to produce high-quality video is falling dramatically. Projects that were previously unaffordable for independent creators or small studios suddenly become viable. A solo filmmaker can now produce work that would have required a post-production team just 3 years ago. This doesn't just change how content gets made, it fundamentally changes what content gets made and who gets to make it. What makes Void a technically significant milestone is what it implies about the underlying model's capabilities. Patching a gap in a frame with plausible texture is a solved problem. Understanding what a scene should physically look like after a structural change, accounting for light sources, object occlusion, motion trajectories, and temporal consistency across frames, requires a fundamentally different kind of spatial and temporal reasoning. Void suggests we are meaningfully closer to video models that don't just generate imagery, but actually comprehend the physical logic of a scene. Void is not a finished destination. There are still edge cases, limitations, and scenarios where the physics correction falls short. But compared to everything else currently available, it represents the most credible step toward video AI that genuinely understands what it is looking at, rather than statistically approximating what looks plausible. The tools releasing in the next 18 months will build directly on what Void has proven is possible. Pay attention to the physics layer. That is where the real race is being run.